right? So we're here for the year-end review. So important to take time at the end of the year to just take stock of some things, set some directions, um, which I know it's very easy for me not to do. There's always something else on the to-do list, and it's easy to miss this. So I wanted to create some time for those who have the interest and inclination to dive in and yeah, just take some steps. So it's going to be fairly hands-on, fairly practical. Of course, we'll be doing just a lot of private reflecting. I'll invite people to share if they want at the end or throughout. But so the format of this, basically, we're going to be starting with what didn't work, and we'll be moving towards what might work. Yeah. So here's the first question, just to dive into it. Question number one is, what is it that did not feel good over the last year? Yeah, and we'll take about 5 minutes on this question. Just what didn't feel good? What didn't work? What felt off? What was draining, frustrating, annoying for you over this last year? So for those of you just joining, we're doing the first question, which is just journaling on what is it that didn't feel good over the past year? What didn't work over the last year? Okay. So now question number 2 is just a general, where are you feeling stuck, if that's different at all? So we'll just take 3 minutes on that. Is there anywhere in your business you're feeling stuck, like I can't get traction on this, I keep trying and then it doesn't happen? So 3 minutes on that. And for those of you who just joined, we've just been reflecting on what hasn't felt good in the last year, where we're feeling stuck. Making a list of that. And then the next question we'll take a couple minutes on is where, what's slipping through the cracks over the last year? What's the stuff that keeps not happening, that keeps, oh, I meant to deal with that 6 months ago and it still hasn't been dealt with? What are those things? So we'll take a couple of minutes on that. Okay, and then 3 minutes on this last one. This is the heavy duty one, the eat your Wheaties one, is where have you been irresponsible over this last year? Yeah. You don't have to share this with anyone. It's just for you. If you were to just say, oh boy, I've really been irresponsible in this area of my business. Not only has this slipped through the cracks, I fully just flushed it, opened the crack wide so it would fall. Just where have you not tended to things as you could have? Okay. So you should have a good list now. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to look over it and circle the top 3 things that you really want to deal with in 2022. What are the things you just don't want to see on this list next year? You really like to deal with. Pick the top 3. Give you a couple minutes. Once you've got the top 3, feel free to flesh it out a little bit. Add any details that you want to add to capture. Okay. So now you've got a list, got the top three, and so what you have in front of you is evidence. Um, but of course, it's not evidence of your guilt or inadequacy, but it is evidence of your capacity. Yeah, it is evidence of you needing more support than you have. So what I'm going to invite you to do now is I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and I want you to start thinking about what support do you need to help deal with these things. Now, this could be education, it could be people, it could be you need to hire somebody, it could be you need to just schedule more time. But just feel free to use your creative imagination on these places that you seem to be stuck or didn't work out the way you'd hoped. 5 minutes. What support do you need? Hopefully you've got some ideas anyways. So now the next 5 minutes, this is going to be for some of you a very, very hard next 5 minutes. Because for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to invite you to just ask for help. So now you've been thinking about the help you need for the last 5 minutes, but now this is where you start sending text messages, you send an email, you post on Facebook. And as I say in the Meantime program, if you want an amount of help, I can give you the time frame. It's 5 minutes, but if you want an amount of help, I can tell you specifically. It's you're looking to ask for an embarrassing amount of help. You should feel embarrassed at some point by this. If you want to really go for the gold, go for mortified. What I mean by that is we often don't ask for enough help. We're often so, try to do it all ourselves, the whole solopreneur thing. And so you asking for an amount of help that feels embarrassing or mortifying, it's probably just an appropriate amount of help because you're probably taking too much on. But ask for what you really need, in other words. You probably have friends who can help you with some of this. Maybe there's somebody in the membership. Maybe there's a colleague or an old friend you have who's been wanting to help you with this for a while. So maybe a specific person might just really be a shout out on social media. Hey, I'm struggling with this thing. Could anyone help? Whatever feels right for you. You've got 5 minutes, and I encourage you to use the whole 5 minutes for asking for help. Okay, so take 5. Okay. Well, hopefully you got some support asked for. And just by way of encouragement, I'll say this. I've done this exercise in the Noontime program, this little 5-minute exercise for many years. And this has completely changed people's lives, that 5 minutes. Somebody who struggled with their website for years by themselves finally asked for help, and all of a sudden the problem was solved. So, take heart. We struggle sometimes on our own, and it's easy to think, oh, that's just how it is. This will never change, but don't believe it. Don't believe it. Sometimes it just takes one idea, one bit of advice, one bit of help from somebody else. And, it's good to, but if you don't know what kind of support to ask for, if you were stymied that whole time, that's the support to ask for, is to get clear. You need support, and getting clear on what kind of support you need. That's a legitimate type of support. Sometimes it's for somebody to come over physically and help you tidy. Like, I keep trying to do this on my own. I don't do it. Come over. I'll cook you dinner. That's a kind of support. Yeah. So does anyone have anything on their list that you're like, I can't even think of what kind of support? I got no support to ask for, anywhere that you just feel, especially in your top 3 places you're stuck and having troubles? Anyone have anything like that?
I'm sort of stuck. I'm adding a new platform.
Oh boy, lunch. Okay, first, Gina.
I'm so sorry. I didn't see the hand. I apologize.
No, you go right ahead, Gina, and then we'll do the next one.
I'm adding a platform to do my subscription program on, and it's not a real large program at this point, and I'd like to expand it. And it's been a really, I'm not sure whether to ask people who are using that platform to help me figure out a way to organize, because what I thought I was going to organize before I purchased the software to be on that platform, it isn't flowing as well as I'd hoped. For me, it doesn't feel good to me, I should say. So I haven't opened it up yet and gone out. So would one want to research other people who've done that platform, or would one want to, I'm not quite sure where to ask the question, but so, I know my flow is not there.
Just to see if I understand, so you're saying you got a software for a subscription program and you just don't like it. It feels a little clunky to you.
It didn't flow with the way I thought it would. When I did it, I had a plan. I'm on it with several other groups, sort of like you have Mighty Networks, and there are others that are out there. And it's in my human design program. I'm in it, and I've enjoyed it there. When I put my stuff into it, it didn't feel like it flowed to me. And I'm sure we all have those challenges that we wish our platform was slightly different than it is. I anticipate you could probably say the same thing on something, although I've found Mighty Networks to work really well for what you're doing with your stuff. I'm okay with it. So I'm not whining on it. It was just that what mine was, I thought this was going to really flow, but it hadn't flowed as easily. I really wanted them to be able to look at each session and look at it from 2 different angles. One is by topic and one is by date or something, so to speak. So it's not clicking for me, and I'm not sure where to search. So when I say I'm going to go ask a question, do I ask people who are at that platform, or do I ask? That's what hit me as a big block.
Well, what strikes me in that one is there's a few things. One is I'd reach out to their customer support and just express what you're wanting. You're probably not the only one, but good to let them know, because sometimes in a new update, they'll say, now you can do that thing that we keep hearing people want to do. Number 2, you might want to ask other people using the same platform. And you might actually ask them to say, look, do you know anyone else who uses this platform who has found ways around this? Because sometimes, they're in touch with people and they could, talk to this person. They do that in their thing. Maybe they've got a forum of folks who do this. But, they have an interest in you being happy. So I would milk their support for all it's worth. Call them, say, look, I'd like to be able to do this. Who do you know? And then, sometimes it's worth, if there are people who use other platforms, like, hey, I'm realizing what I really want is this. Does anyone know of a platform that allows that as a long-term fix? Because maybe there is something. Like, I was just sitting there with Michelle Avis from Verge Permaculture, and they're using a WordPress membership thing. Oh man, I was so envious of so many things. Like you gamify it, you get little points, and if you do this, you get, there was so much flexibility I don't have with Mighty Network. I'm just green with envy. And I'm sure there's things Mighty Networks can do that theirs can't. But those are my thoughts. Anyways, it looks like there was something in the chat about that. Right, you could ask an instructional designer. Sure, yeah, if you can find somebody. That's a really good point. Yeah, there are people who help people build courses, who help people come up, and they probably know a lot of these different softwares. So, if anyone knows an instructional designer, they can refer to Gina, please do. But yeah.
That's perfect. I think starting with Teachable, which is where I was going, it looked like it fit perfect when I had it organized out, and before I did it, and I researched to the point that I researched too much probably, and then I'd narrowed it. And so I felt really good about the purchase. I wasn't upset about it and fearful. But when I put it all in, it didn't feel good to me. It didn't, it wasn't even putting it in or doing that. It was when it put it in and I went to it, I didn't feel good doing it. And it's like, oh my God, I don't want to send this out to my clients because my stuff's feel good stuff. So.
Sure. Okay, well, best wishes on that. Okay, who else has a question? Anywhere else you're stuck? Lisa.
Yeah, I'd like to know whether anybody here knows any interesting books or videos on the topic of collaboration, cooperation, self-employed people working together on projects, a long term, whether you've ever come across something like that. I know
Can you give an example of like what kind of working together?
Yes, well, I know a couple of examples from my area. Like, for example, I have a book publishing house, and I work with other book publishers and we have similar topics, and we work together to supply the right kind of books to the bookstores or reach out to authors. But also, for example, I know a group of people that work together on making a journey for people that are marrying but don't want a cliched marriage. So they put together these ideas of how you can marry in a very adventurous or atypical way. That's another thing. But generally, I'm just interested in where do independent companies, experts work together with clients without becoming joint ventures, I suppose, yeah, but without becoming one mega corporation.
Right. So yeah, you want to have some kind of book or resources around how to form these partnerships in a way that's really win-win. Everyone keeps their autonomy, but you're all collaborating in a really good way. Now, are you thinking of these short-term things, or are you looking at more long-term, or does it matter?
I see these things as long-term partnerships.
Yeah.
And what I have found two books that are very analytical and very from marketing experts, and talking about corporations working together.
Sure.
But more for solopreneurs or just small companies working together.
Okay, here's my question is, what's your nightmare scenario? What are the scenarios you're trying to avoid? Like, you want to read a book so that you make sure you never, so that what never happens?
I think it's I don't want to lose faith that cooperatives can work well together. And I just want to find reassurance and sort of get into areas of where this is happening a lot already.
Right. But when you say, like, what would it working poorly look like for you? Like, what's the specific things you don't want to see happen?
Yeah, if they can't sort of, if it sort of loses itself because they don't spend enough energy on working together, and then they just sort of nobody sort of takes the lead in it, and then it just sort of disappears into nothing.
Right. You don't want to have something that fizzles out. Is one.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Right. So you want something that's going to be long lasting, have some life to it, have energy to it. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if anyone has any books about that, any resources, it's a good question. There's a whole thing called sociocracy. I haven't delved into it. It may be a little more intense than what you're needing, but it's a whole platform and way of thinking about working together.
What's it called?
Sociocracy.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that's one resource.
I'm here in Germany, and we have something like that. I think in your countries, it's more like the B Corps.
Yeah, B Corp. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they might start to, make that possible.
Yeah. The other thing is, oh gosh, what is the book? One of Stephen Covey's book. I mean, just the most important thing is about having clear agreements. That's well, to me, the first thing is making sure there's really a clear vision and set of values that you're all on board with. That's the most important thing. What are we all about? What are we trying to create? Number two is to make sure there's clear agreements up front around who does what. And there's three things that have to be clear here. Like, what do I do? What do you do? What do we do? Those all have to be clear. What are the things that I do? Don't bother me about it. That's my job. What are the things that you do that I let you do it? And what are the things that we have to decide together? That no one just freestyles on it. So really clarifying those is important. And just having that in writing, of course, a very clear agreement. Like, here's the intention, here's the why it matters, here's the resources at our disposal, and all of that being clear. And then number three is systems. There's got to be really clear systems to keep the agreement in place as a way to practice it. So that means checklists, that go with the agreements, who does what when. This could be a shared spreadsheet. This means regular meetings. Okay, we find that if we meet once a month, that's enough to keep it going. That also means some level of commitment to the collective. Like, I was a part of one online men's business group, and they did it in like chunks of 6 meetings, and you got to miss one. If you missed 2, you were out. You could come back the next one. But so things like that, even what are the standards, how are we defining in and out, all of that should be as clear as possible. Yeah, and I would to me, starting small with the people you really are on the same page with, and adding people slowly rather than trying to add a bunch of people. So those are some thoughts. And it looks like in the chat, Jan posted a book that may be of use.
Oh,
there we go.
That's nice.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for your input.
Anyone else? Is there somewhere you're stuck? Kathy.
Well, I haven't been tracking any stats, which I know is really important. And so I want to know, like, where should I start? I do have a VA who's not quite onboarded yet, but she knows spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are a little overwhelming for me, but they'd be useful for this if she designed it. but like, I don't know where to start. Like, do I just go through the whole last year? Do I just start now? Do I go through the past 6 months? Like,
do you know what you want to track?
I want to track clients, where they came from, workshops, how many connection calls they yielded, how many of those calls yielded clients.
Okay, so you do have a list of things you want to track.
I know it in my head, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, number one, just making sure that's clear. Number two is making sure it's very clear how to get those stats. Because sometimes, I found, I'm actually in the middle of this where I've got my list of stats myself. But I've moved now to ConvertKit, not Constant Contact. It's a new website. And so I'm actually having to re-figure out how to get those stats. And I realized I was getting some of the stats from the wrong places. So this is one of the things I'd recommend. I'll just show you what this looks like for me. This is just a general, you're welcome in advance. This is going to make your lives so much better in a measurable way. Okay. Okay, so this is my overall stats tracking. Now, some of these I've really realized I've gotten wrong. But you'll notice that every single one of these is linked to the place where I go and get that stat. See what I'm saying? So this is what you would give to you'd work this out with your VA. And you make sure all of these are linked so you can just click on this and go. And if you need instructions, and there's a note, and you can put it all in the note. If you want to find how many pro members there are, click on this link and then go through these instructions. Yeah. So you want to make this assistant. So basically, so that if your assistant got sick and or said I quit and you had to hire somebody else, that it would all be just really well laid out. So this is the way I've done it, and then I can track it, over the month. So as you can see, it's very encouraging. It's like, oh man, back in January, I had a 13% open rate in my emails, and then it went up to 17% by November. And actually, with the move, I don't know what happened, but now it's like a 26% open rate, which is crazy huge for my industry, anyways. So yeah, you can start to see, what's what. I've divided up by email, social media, website, membership. And these are all things I need to, again, go through, change. I realized I was actually counting the wrong numbers for how many Chrome members. Like, what a darn show. So it's just important to make sure you've got that all laid out. And then they can do it and just show it to you. But it's also there in case they need to move on to another job.
Okay. Thanks.
And Elisa's saying for WordPress websites, I recommend a Matamo plugin, Matomo. It's very ethical about tracking users, and it does not share the data with corporations, but it's really only limited to what goes on your website. Cool. Anyone else have anything somewhere they're stuck, somewhere I really have no idea how to deal with this? Okay. Cool. So now we're going to move on to part 2. So first, that was the depressing part, first part. So now this is a bit more inspiring. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And in these 10 minutes, I'm going to invite you to think about what is it you want to achieve in 2022? What do you want to see happen? What are the goals? What do you want to be able to brag about at the end of 2022? Like, oh my God, this year I did this thing. Yeah, so I'm going to give you 10 minutes just to envision a bit, and then we'll check that. All right, about 1 more minute. Okay. Well, hopefully you've got a big list of inspiring things. So again, I'd invite you to circle the top 3. Those are boy, if I could just get these 3 things done, next year would be a big professional win for me. And then, if you like, feel free to put anything in the chat around the goals you have for the next year, intentions you have, but no pressure to, but if you'd like to share them. Like, what would you be most stoked about if at the end of the next year you could say, yeah, I did this, this happened, I did this. Take 1 more minute on that. Okay, wonderful. So as you look at that list of things to achieve, you're going to probably need some space to do that. So the next question, I'll give you about 3 minutes, is to look at your life, look at your choices, and just decide, is there something I need to step back from over the next year to make room for that. Yeah, maybe there's some commitments that you have that you really need to, like, man, I'm on this board and it's just the worst. It's draining me. I don't even know why I'm a part of it. Maybe there's some social engagements that you actually don't really want to do. Maybe, man, I could cut back on the Netflix, stop the doom scrolling, just where could you create the space in your life? So 3 minutes just to reflect on where you might throw some elbows and carve out a bit more room. Okay. Now the next step is, again, you're probably going to need some help. You're going to need some support on these things as you look at the things to do. There are likely parts of it, I mean, that if you could have done it before, you might have. So again, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes just for you to really look at each goal and just think, okay, to achieve that one, what help do I need? Probably going to need somebody at my back for that, and I need to know how to do something for this. I'm going to need to know somebody who has this skill. I'm going to, whatever it is, but kind of go goal by goal. Start with the top 3 and just figure out where's the help that you might need. In other words, where might you get stuck? Like, oh, I could see doing this, and then just, shutting down halfway through and ignoring it because I didn't know how to fix this one thing. It could be a technical thing, it could be an emotional, like, oh, I know if I do this, it's going to bring some emotions up. I should probably make sure I have some support in advance for that. So it's where we start to predict where it could go wrong, what might not work. So 5 minutes just to outlay, where you're going to need some support for this. About 1 more minute. Okay. So, got a good list of things. The next piece is going to be looking at your next year and mapping it out. This may be the most practical thing we can do. So literally, I mean, you can just draw it on a piece of paper, 12 boxes, one for every month. Do it on your laptop, however you want to do it. I kind of recommend pen and paper, probably the easiest, but make a table on your computer, type it out. However you want to do it. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to just map out your next year. What are you going to do when? What programs you're going to be launching, what services, by what point do you want to have a certain ebook done or a course created? Put that out over the next year. And let's just start with that. So 10 minutes to map it out. And enjoy. Couple more minutes. Okay. So now you've got hopefully the next year sort of loosely mapped out in front of you. The next step is to look at those different points on the calendar and start to go before and to ask yourself, okay, when do I need to start marketing this as one of the questions? Yes, like at least 6 weeks beforehand, at least probably 3 months beforehand you want to be, yeah. And you might also want to put on the calendar, when do I need to plan this out? The marketing of this thing or the writing of this thing. So I would also make notes of that on the calendar. So for example, you got a big 30-day program you want to do. You obviously don't want to start marketing that 2 weeks before. So you think, oh, well, I should probably start marketing it. I should mention it maybe 3 months before that it's coming up. Okay, so marketing starts there. And it's like, when are you going to announce it? And then, have I designed it? Oh, I haven't even designed this thing yet. Okay, so maybe that should be 6 months before. You get the idea. When should I start planning out the whole marketing process of it? So you want to start thinking backwards from those things and add to your calendar those dates. So just take a couple minutes for that. Okay. Now, as you look at all that, you may also feel like, boy, looking at that year ahead, I can see some places I might get stuck. I can see some places I might need support. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to just look at that and say, okay, where do I need help in this coming year? Where, boy, I've never done an online course before. I want to launch one this year. I can see that that's going to be trouble. Oh man, I'm always last minute on these things. I'm always 3 weeks before doing the mad scramble to promote things. So I can see I might need help with that. So 3 minutes to just figure out, looking at that calendar, what support do you need? Okay. So now, tremendous shock. The next 5 minutes will be you asking for this support, sending emails, posting on Facebook, text somebody, call somebody, however you want. You've got a list of things you need help with now. You've got a list of things you need support with where it went wrong last year, but now think about what you want to create. There's still help you need. So 5 minutes where all you're doing is just asking for help, reaching out, seeing if you can get a bit of backing on this. 30 seconds. Okay, as we begin to move to a close, one of the most important things that we can be doing, you know, I've heard it said, if you drink, you know, you just think about it, it's a dream. If you you know, write it down, it's a goal, it's, you know, more tangible. But if you schedule it, it's real. And so what I'm going to invite you to do now is to actually look in your calendar and figure out, you know, when are you going to be working on this stuff? You might want to make some time. It's, most of us don't put enough time on our schedule to actually work on our business. We get caught up working in our business, and then our schedule, of course, gets too packed. So I would figure out, is it 1 hour a day? Is it 3 hours a week? You can just be blocking off. It's like, this is for me working on these goals long term. Just making sure you've got the time. Now, you may already have this, and that's great. But if you find yourself, boy, I never have time, I'm always behind the 8 ball on these things, then to look at your schedule. Sometimes just put a recurring thing in. Every Friday from 1 to 4, I'm going to work on this stuff. I'm just setting this aside to really work on my business, to work on the long-term stuff. The other thing I can't recommend highly enough for the new year is starting off by tidying your space. This really is the kind of thing, invite a friend over if you're able to, return the favor, you know, but just do the big clean that you've been putting off. Do the declutter, get into the closets. Just, it's so good. It's such a great way to start the year. If you're looking to realize a ritual to kind of mark it, it's one of the best ones there is. And then the last thing is, I'm going to invite you to pick for this next year one of the 5 fundamentals to focus on. I've really been realizing that there are 5 fundamentals that I teach, and so much of business comes down to businesses work because these fundamentals are in place. They don't work because they're not in place. So I'll put a link to the page on my website where I actually have this really laid out. But they won't be unfamiliar to you. And yet, one of these is probably your weak point. And if none of them are, get out of this membership. You're doing great. You don't need this thing. If all of these are solid, genuine, I don't know why you're here. But I'm assuming at least one of these is some trouble. Use some love. Okay, so this is the link, but let me just go over them. Fundamental number 1 is just what I call marketing for hippies 101. This is sometimes the sticking point for people, is they just haven't looked at other ways of marketing that could feel good. At a basic level, marketing feels terrible. There's so much emotional resistance to it. And there's a lack of any practical sense of how to do it in a way that would feel good. Yeah, so at a basic level, there's just an aversion to marketing. And so there's often a need to just get some of the basics. And so this is my day-long workshop. And you'll see all the links, by the way, on that page. You'll see links to all my playlists on that. Is on YouTube. But if you go under the topics, and we're still in the process of reorganizing them, in the topics in the membership, you'll see the 101 topics. And you also see inner as a topic. And there's all that content that you can dive into. The second sticking point is, of course, niche. Trying to be everything to everybody. I don't know what I'm doing yet. It still feels a little nebulous. You go to explain it to people. People look at you just like with the kind eyes as they pat you on the head. Oh, nobody understands what you're saying. So it could be the niche thing. Third thing it could be is the point of view piece. So it might be like, no, 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 I know what I do, who I do it for, where, when, and all that. But this articulation of your, people generically get it. Oh, you help people learn how to fold their bed sheets better. I get that, what that is. It's not confusing. But wait, what is it about your technique on folding bed? I don't trust it, So this is the kind of thing where you can tell that people, they understand what you do, but they don't value it. They don't really appreciate how amazing what you have is to offer. So that point of view is the third. The fourth one is the business model piece. So this is, man, I got people following me. I've got clients, but I'm broke. Like, what the shit, my business model doesn't work. I'm not making money on this. I'm burned out all the time. This just isn't sustainable. So again, you may have all this, marketing feels fine, your niche is clear, your point of view is as clear as it's going to get, but the business model itself isn't working. It's like, man, I'm working very hard and I'm not making a lot of money. There's not a lot to show for it. There's more months at the end of the month. So that's number 4. Number 5 is the hub marketing piece. It's like, no, I've got a pretty good container to receive people when they arrive and all that's clear. But man, just not enough people are finding me. I'm not reaching enough people. So those are the 5 fundamentals. And what I'd invite you to do is to pick one for the year. And this year, delve into it, dig deep. You might even want to schedule an hour a week, but this is all you're working on, is learning about this. Yeah, thanks, Kat. Yeah, I'm just happy with that page too. Yeah, so 1 hour a week or half an hour a week, whatever it is. But I tell you what, if you spend 1 hour a week just learning about this topic, and believe me, you couldn't go through all the content I have in 50 hours on those topics. So maybe actually some of those topics maybe you could. But it's just, there's something about immersing yourself in that. Whenever you're learning something new, it's so funny. It's the same for me when I'm trying to learn something new, let's say around health, you hear it and it kind of makes sense, but there's so much old programming around health, or I think with Kathy's work around parenting coaching. It's not like what Kathy's saying is outrageously hard to understand. There's 7 principles. It's like you can hear it once and you can intellectually get it, but to go through the resistance around it, to come up face to face with your own programming with parenting, to then the practical translation to your kid, your situation, your spouse, there's a real mercy to just be able to sit in it, steep in it, hear it over and over again until it finally sinks in. If you were going to learn a foreign language, you would need to do that. That's the only way to learn a foreign language, frankly. Trying to learn a language, like if you're an English speaker, trying to learn a non-English language through the medium of English with weekly classes, just stick a fork in yourself. It's over. It's done. There's no more, But if you want to go to another country and take classes on that language, in the language, while being immersed in the language, 3 months, you'd be amazed how far you get. So there's a similar thing here. Can you immerse yourself in this fundamental? Just delve in, listen to it a lot, and do the work. I mean, it could be that 1 hour a week, if you did that, could be listening to stuff of mine or other people's stuff, but it could also just be doing the work, delving in that way, practically translating it to your situation. You'll figure it out. But that would be my recommendation, because I tell you what, you could do a lot worse in this year than really nail that fundamental. It'd be like in basketball. You're like, man, it's the shot from the foul line. Is there a foul line of basketball? I don't know anything about basketball. Why did I pick this as a metaphor? Oh, God. The 3-point line. Let's say that there is. I know for a fact there's a 3-point line in basketball. But it's like, that's my shot. That's where I'm weak. Okay, well then you nailed that year. You practice that. That will be the last sports metaphor you ever hear me use. This membership program. I was the tallest kid in my high school, significantly, and I did not make the basketball team. And I said, Coach, I'm not only the tallest kid at McKernan's school, I'm the tallest kid in this district. And he looked at me and just said, I know. With heartbreak and disappointment etched on his face. Oh, the waste. Shit. Okay. Anyway, do you know what I'm saying? If you have that one thing nailed, Like if you're struggling with niche and by the end of the year, you've really got a clear niche, you're welcome. You saw some of you saw on Instagram. It's incredible. By the way, if you haven't seen it, go to my Instagram and check this. It just says the amazing email I got this morning or something like that. Wow. Just wow. You won't even be able to be mad at it. You're just going to be impressed with it. But I got this email and anyways, this guy he paid $10,000 to do some coaching with somebody, but his niche wasn't clear. And so basically it didn't work. And also, as you'll see, this guy is a piece of work. It's amazing. You won't actually even be able to believe that this is a real email. But definitely a narcissist. As the old joke goes, you know why the narcissist crossed the road? Thought it was a boundary. Still got it. But anyways, just because the niche wasn't working. You didn't have a niche. So if he'd had a niche, actually some of that, what he'd learned, even if it was pushing aggressive, might have stood a chance of doing something, but he had no niche. So pick the fundamental, really work it, and reach out. Let me know how it's going throughout the year. If you need support, figuring out what to look at around that fundamental, I'm real happy to help. And that's it. There's the work. I'd love to hear in the chat, maybe just anything that was most useful to you, if anything. Yeah, what was most helpful for you from today in this session? I admire you all for coming, by the way, taking this time. I really admire that. Yeah, Gina is saying, what needs to be decluttered to make space for new things? Smart plotting the year. Yeah, focus on one fundamental. Yeah, plotting the year, boy, it's a big deal. Just taking the time. We just don't do it often. Yeah. Jan saying, focusing on one basic per year. Lee said, mapping up the year and scheduling it. Good. Appreciate the push to ask for help in organizing the year. Keep asking for help. When we get stuck, it just seems to me there's one of two responses people have. One is to beat the shit out of themselves for being inadequate and how come you can't do it again? And we must, God, just like Mom said, that, or you just ask for help. You treat it as evidence that you're worthless, or you treat it as evidence that, you just need a bit of help. Lisa said, it was a great process. I did something similar last year. It took me 2 days, but these questions get to the point. I'm glad to do it. I've never done this before, so I'll do it again next year. All right, thinking about what didn't feel good. I tell you what, your body knows. Your body just knows the whole deal. If you just notice that felt awful, there's so much information there. If the marketing doesn't feel good, there you go. Yeah. Jenny's saying, you're a great coach. I appreciate your questions. You make this work. Thanks for creating this space. Well, I appreciate your capacity for appreciation, Jenny. You have that capacity deeply honed. That is apparent. Well, wonderful. Everyone, thank you so much. Good to have you here. Of course, no call this Friday. It's New Year's, but we'll be back on Monday. No Monday calls, actually. It's back on the Friday calls. But there's a bunch of stuff coming up in the January. You can already see some of the stuff coming up, and there'll be more happening. So, yeah. All right. Take care, everyone.